I was thinking. When we were teenagers living outside of Philadelphia, and we wanted to get drunk, we would drive over the Ben Franklin Bridge in Camden, New Jersey. There were a bunch of bars on Admiral Wilson Boulevard, and it was a rough neighborhood, if you could call it a neighborhood. There was a place called Minnie's Bar and Go-Go. It was a strip club, and for some reason they let us in there. The fact that it was so lawless around there allowed us to drink with impunity. I remember one night around 1:30 in the morning, we were coming home, and the car broke down on the side of the road. And a cop drove by, not to help us, but just tell us to better get the hell out of there. If I had met Tony on that street, just on the other side of the bridge, I don't know if he would have been as friendly as he was at the Fred Meyer parking lot at Issaquah last year. That's where I got a chance to meet Tony. And it was strange because I thought of him on Saturday when I saw that the United States and Israel had begun to bomb Iran. Tony.
Hey, John, how you doing?
Good, my friend. You know, isn't it strange that we meet again this way? You could have met me on Admiral Wilson Boulevard if the car were broken down. How do you think that would have worked out? You were probably you were 17. I was going to be 16, 17. Wouldn't have been so good for me, right?
Are you talking about 81, 80?
Yeah, right in there, 80, right in 81? There, right in there, Tony.
Yeah. Well, the question is, John, what were you doing on Admiral Wilson Boulevard?
Well, I was looking at naked women and drinking beer. You got a complaint with that?
No, you were doing more than that. You're not telling the whole story. What about full disclosure there, John?
Tony, we're not going to get into that. What we're going to talk about, it wouldn't have been good because that was a rough neighborhood, and white boys coming over from Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, going into Camden, New Jersey, we were probably sitting ducks. And especially with am I right or wrong, Tony?
Only at nighttime.
Right.
But it was the same thing for anybody from Camden heading into Woodland or Gloucester or any number of towns in southern Jersey at the time.
Statistically speaking, you had a better chance of surviving being in Lebanon, Beirut, 5,700 miles away from Camden, New Jersey, than being in Camden, New Jersey. And at the age of 17, you joined the Marines.
Yep.
Why, Tony?
Well, why did I join the Marine Corps?
Yeah.
It's what I always wanted to do. I always wanted to serve my country. I always wanted to, actually, tell you the truth, it's going to sound a little bit corny. I wanted to be like John Wayne, Sansa Iwo Jima. You know, I was enamored with the history and the accomplishments and the esprit de corps of the Marine Corps, and I wanted desperately to be a part of it.
Did you think you had Marine Corps, whatever the Marine Corps needed, do you think you had some of that at that time?
I hoped I did. Nobody wants to fail at anything, but if you don't try, you don't know. And so from the age of 11 onward, you know, I would study all the uniforms of not only our service members, but our allies, learn to identify planes and ships from the silhouette, memorize, you know, everything that you wanted to memorize or that you needed to memorize going into the service if you wanted to call it a career, if you wanted to make a career out of it. Yeah.
You're 17 years old. You probably didn't know a lot about international politics and stuff. So when they told you were going to go to Beirut, Lebanon, what were your thoughts?
That's what infantry Marines train for, John. That's what we train for. And you know what? Everybody going over there, our morale was high. Spirits were in great shape. We were well trained. We were well led. You know, and we had the United States of America at our back. So had no worries.
What was happening at the time was there was great unrest, almost civil war breaking out. The United States, Ronald Reagan sent the Marines in sort of as peacekeepers to be there in Lebanon, hoping that it would just sort of quell any kind of conflicts that was happening. Certain groups that were there would take shots at you, pot shots at the Marines, but you were never allowed to fire back.
Unfortunately, that's true. And I mean, several times, you get shot at. You had to call up on a landline to get permission to come down off of the post with the express knowledge that as soon as the firing ceased, you had to get back up on there to show that we weren't afraid. But there were rules in place where we were allowed to defend ourselves only under, the harshest conditions. But, yeah, we had rules in place. And some of them were nonsensical to a bunch of us on the ground, but we're Marines. We do what we're ordered to do.
There's a handmade sign, the No Shoot Back Cafe. There was a little sign there that you just sat there, let them take shots at you because it was all about a peacekeeping mission.
Right. We were part of the multinational peacekeeping force. Right.
Yeah. And here's why I thought of you on Saturday when the war broke out. Iran was funding these terrorists there in Lebanon, and they just didn't want Americans there, and they wanted to show they could control what they could control. So at 6:22 a.m., so there's a truck that comes in. It's got a 2,000-pound bomb, and it's got flammable liquid all around it, and it goes right past the gate and drives right into the lobby, right to the front of the lobby. And at that point, historians and scientists will tell you, Tony, that this thing was the biggest non-nuclear explosion since World War II.
I know it well. Unfortunately, I know it well. And that truck didn't just go around those barriers and ram into the building. It faced a couple of Marines that were restricted by the rules of engagement that we had to operate under. And they did the best they could. And unfortunately, it wasn't good enough.
One Marine said he saw the guy come through the gate, look over at him. He looked at him, looked him right in the eyes. He said the guy gave a little bit of smile, pushed down on the gas and drove that thing in, parked it, and then detonated it. The entire roof of the building, it was all made of concrete, flew 40 feet in the air and came back down, created a 13-foot crater, and taking the lives of 241 U.S. service personnel, 220 Marines, 21 as well. There was some sailors in there and some folks that were serving in the Army. Where were you at the time?
My company was I'm sorry, you bring that up. You can't just talk about that building without a mention of the men that were inside of it.
Right. I'm sorry.
I wasn't no, I take no offense, my friend. You're just speaking the facts. But just put a little context on it. There were good men there. All of them set out to do their country's bidding, to protect American interests and the people and the lifestyle that we live back at home. Sorry.
That's all right. Tony,
But I'm sorry, John. To answer your question, I was at the American University of Beirut, which is about 3/4 of a mile away, when the blast went off. Yeah. The blast was such, I was just leading my fire team off of duty, and concussion was such that it actually knocked me on the ground. Mm. And I organized my team, and we raced up. They had a series of stairs that led up to like a moat that went around the building. And we went up there to see if we could see, what had happened. And we see folks frantically trying to raise the BLT, the building that got blown up, our headquarters company, to they were trying to contact the BLT on a landline, but there was only static on the end. And when you looked over, all you saw was a giant double mushroom cloud. And, we knew it wasn't going to be a response.
It's all. You don't apologize for that. Tony, the reason I wanted to talk to you, first of all, because you were the first person I thought of when I heard the war started. And I thought the war didn't start. The war started, you go back to the time, 79, when they took American hostages. And then when Iran decided they were going to terrorize parts of the Middle East, and in particular blow up those Marines to show that they weren't afraid of anything. I thought of you because anytime anybody pulls a trigger in honor of their country or sets off a bomb, there's somebody like you, some kid from Camden, New Jersey, who's 17 or 18 years old, who has to receive the other end of it and see somebody die or they themselves lose a limb. It's about the human being. So that's why I thought of you.
Well, exactly. Well, thank you for thinking of me with that. But you said it perfectly fine, my friend. It's about the people that are on the ground. It's about the other 17-year-olds and the 20-year-olds and the 25-year-olds and 40-year-old Sergeant Major Frederick Douglass. It's about all of us. It's about the Marine Corps. The one thing that people know when they see one Marine is that all of the Marine Corps is behind them, and all of the United States is behind the Marine Corps. And you're right when you say that the Iran's actions, started, before then, 79. But I'll go back even further. Now, first, before I do, are you certain that you want me to talk about this?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Well, if you want to go back and just being equitable with the truth, you go back to 53 when, what was his name? Mossadegh was elected, democratically elected, to the presidency of Iran. And he wanted to nationalize the oil fields. And there were a couple of countries, the United States and the UK, that didn't think that was such a good idea. So things, United States and Britain do what the United States and Britain do, and he's gone.
Yep.
And we install the Shah.
Yep.
Yeah. And the Shah wound up being a brutal dictator. He modernized the country in a lot of ways, but he oppressed the people in many more ways. And, during that time over in Paris, there was a guy named Khomeini who was, to discuss what you were saying before, hyping up the revolution.
Yes.
Or the fact that there should be a revolution. And eventually it came to a head, and the revolution occurred, and the hostages were taken.
Yeah, there's always so many layers to the stories, but as Tony, it still gets back to somebody like you standing there, and whatever the reason is, you sign up for the Marines, and when they tell you go over that hill, or they tell you get down that hole, or they tell you to go in there and take that building, you do it. So,
and we do it well.
Yes, you do. Well, listen.
Yes, sir.
I am so glad you answered my call. I'm so glad I didn't meet you on the streets of Admiral Wilson Boulevard back in 1981. Tony, I love you.
I love you too, John. Hey, thank you for having me on, and I apologize if I ruined your podcast by not sticking to the script that you didn't give me. But all I have to say is I think you're a really cool guy. That's why, I took the time to talk to you, and I was glad that you took the time to talk to me. And, I hope you continued success, my friend.
Thank you, Tony. I'll call you after the show.
Sounds good.
Back to work with you.
All right. Bye-bye.